Hi ESLC employees, my name is Lauren DeGroat. For those of you who don't know me, I'm from Human Resources. I'm here today to go over some of the recent policy updates which we are putting in the new ESLC handbook. We wanted to make you aware of these changes and make you aware of the process that we went through. We used a collaborative approach to update the handbook. I met with managers, supervisors, directors, and employees to see what was most commonly questioned and what needed to be updated. We then reviewed multiple times with senior leadership to determine what policies should or could be updated. It's important to read and familiarize yourself with the handbook. It's always available on the Paylocity self-service portal. Hard copies are kept at each location, on each unit, and in Human Resources if you'd like to read a hard copy. After reviewing the most recent handbook, you will be required to sign off that you have read and understand the entire handbook, so please see your supervisor to do this. So I'll start going through some of the changes. This is a summary. There were other minor changes that were made, but they don't really have an impact on everyday employee life. So starting off with resident living areas, employees may not use resident equipment, the televisions, phones, stereos, newspapers, without consent of the resident. Using resident rooms, kitchens, or areas designated for residents may result in disciplinary action even if the area is unoccupied. Next point goes into tips and gifts on page 10. Employees should not ask to borrow money or take money from residents for any reason. Special accommodations may be made if a resident requests a staff member to help them with personal needs, shopping or purchasing personal items. This request needs to be submitted and approved to the appropriate department manager, social work, and the finance department before such transactions can take place. So for example, if one of your residents says they want their favorite candy bar from Wegmans or they need a new pair of socks, but they don't have family or friends to help them out with these things, you can request special permission to go shopping for them, and there are proper documentation that needs to go into place before you can do that shopping. The next point is for transfers. On page 13, per diem employees who wish to increase their status to a scheduled part-time or full-time position may be considered as long as the employee is in good standing at the time of a transfer request. The next point for employee medical examinations on page 18, the employee health office notifies the employee and the manager when they're due for an annual assessment. It is the employee's responsibility to schedule their annual health assessment within 30 days of their hire date, within their hire month, or they will be taken off the schedule until requirements are met per the Department of Health. The next point for personal relationships in the workplace on page 20, relatives may not interject in daily work duties of their relative or assist with duties in any way unless they're part of a departmental team. This can adversely affect the work performance for both parties. So if we have a situation where a parent is working in nursing and their child is working in dietary or something along those lines, the parent or the other party may not go in and say, hey, can I help you out with setting tables? Hey, can I help you get this done or clean this? Because then they're not doing their work, and we are not getting a good gauge on the performance of the other employee. If you're working in a departmental team, you're both a resident care assistant at one of our assisted living facilities, and you notice that your family or friend member's call bell keeps going off and they're really busy, but you're not, it's okay to help them out because you're working within departmental needs. The next point is for reinstatement. Employees will return to his or her former pay status when rehired in the same job or as adjusted for market changes if the reinstatement falls within 1 year of the date of separation from employment. This is if you are offered a position, you wouldn't be reinstated into a position within 1 year just because you wanted to come back. The next point for name changes. On page 27, any name change must be submitted to Human Resources prior to being changed in any system, including Paylocity, ESLC email, your work badge. In order for the name change to take effect, you need to submit a new Social Security card, documentation of your name change, so a marriage license or other court document, and a new government-issued photo ID with your new name on it. The next point for shift differentials, page 36, our shift differentials have been updated. They are really fantastic, so please review the employee handbook to see the updated rates. The next point for ETO and New York State sick leave on page 53, check the employee handbook for the updated New York State sick leave and earned time off changes there. The next point for earned time off on page 53, you may now take ETO at a minimum of 1 hour increments. However, you may not use ETO to cover tardiness. This is changed from the 2 hour increment that it previously was. The next point for attendance on page 84, it's changed to say 2 call-ins within the first 90-day introductory period will result in a final written warning. A 3rd call-in within the 90-day introductory period will result in termination of employment. So it's changed from 1 call-in within the first 90 days will result in a final written warning, and a 2nd will result in termination. The next part of the employee handbook that we've updated has to do with personal appearance. There are a few different changes for personal appearance. So pages 86 to 88. Work appropriate jeans and leggings are acceptable if they're worn in a business casual fashion on casual days. T-shirts are acceptable as long as they're worn in a business casual fashion and are work appropriate. Nothing with a lot of crazy logos or graphics on them, and make sure they're work appropriate, of course. Open-toed shoes are acceptable if they do not present a safety concern and they meet dress code requirements of the community, and when not in clinical, maintenance, environmental service, or food service areas. That doesn't mean we can all wear our favorite flip-flops to work. They need to be business casual, business professional, open-toed shoes. Nursing style Crocs are acceptable as long as they're worn correctly with a strap around the back of the foot so you prevent slips or falls. They also need to be closed. They can't have the holes in them so that a hazard could fall through, a needle, something hot, something could fall on you. They need to be the nursing style closed Crocs. Under all circumstances of elements of personal hygiene should respect coworkers and be in compliance with all regulatory requirements and the requirements established for the health and safety of our residents and employees. So that just means that we need to be conscious of using perfumes, any kind of colognes, lotions, to make sure that we're not upsetting people's allergies, asthma. It can cause headaches, so make sure you're aware of how much perfume, cologne, and lotion you're using on a daily basis. Facial piercings that are close to the face, so a stud in nature, are allowed as long as they don't pose a safety concern. Anything that protrudes away from the face presents a safety concern, so those would not be allowed. So a hoop, a ring, anything that dangles. Earrings are to be no larger or longer than a nickel. Earring bars and extenders are still prohibited. The next part is artificial nails are acceptable as long as they are less than 1/4 of an inch above the fingertip. So we usually say if you can't make a fist with your hand without your fingernails digging into your palm, they are too long. So artificial nails are now okay as long as they're not too long. So that means gel, acrylic, and press-on nails. The next part, moving away from personal appearance, is for ID badges. Badges may be reissued 2 times without penalty. If a 3rd badge needs to be reissued because of a lost or misplaced badge, a $10 fee will be charged. This doesn't apply to your badges 10, 5, however years old and it's falling apart. That is acceptable as long as it hasn't been a lost or a misplaced badge. The next part, for bullying in the workplace. Cyberbullying, any kind of slandering, ridiculing, or maligning a person or his or her family via social media, email, or otherwise is prohibited. We've always had guidelines regarding bullying in the workplace. We just added cyberbullying since it's become more common in our day and age. The next part is for confidentiality. On page 112, resident or organization information improper use includes researching information on residents and reporting or sharing information. So if you know somebody who has a relative, family member, neighbor living in our facility, you may not go in and research if they were to ask you questions about their care. The last part that we've updated that pertains to employees on a daily basis is for separation of employment on page 130. Employees who voluntarily resign will be paid their accrued ETO if the following 3 criteria are met. They need to give appropriate written notice, which for non-management means 2 weeks notice and management positions means 4 weeks notice. They need to work each scheduled day during the notice period unless planned time off had previously been established in the notice period. Meaning if I had an employee who gave their notice and they said, I'm giving my 2 weeks, but I have the next 2 days off to go to my daughter's soccer tournament and I pre-planned that 3 months ago, that's okay. The next criteria to meet is they need to have been employed for a minimum of 3 months. So employees that have not completed their introductory period will not be able to get their ETO accrued to them, even though they may have already accrued it. So in closing, if you have any questions about what was just covered or any other policy that you have read through that's outlined in the handbook, see your supervisor or somebody in human resources. We will be rolling out the new handbook in the next couple of weeks, so you'll need to see your supervisor to read through and sign off that you have read through the handbook. Like I mentioned earlier, there are multiple other policies that have been updated, but they don't affect employees in their everyday work life, so we haven't gone through them here. So read through the handbook to see other changes that have been made as well. Thank you so much to all of you for your continued dedication to Episcopal Senior Life Communities and living our values of compassion, dedication, friendliness, innovation, and respect every day. Have a great day, everybody.